Hi, I'm Jane Dunwald and welcome to my YouTube channel. We're filming a session today that has to do with color mixing, and it's appropriate for anybody who uses paints or wet media of any kind. My background is surface design, and I usually use textile paints, but to tell you the truth, what I'm talking about in this video has to do with mixing paint colors together. It doesn't matter whether they're acrylics or craft paints or anything. It's probably true of tempera as much as it's true of anything else. In any event, here's the basic strategy, because it's part of the best practice series. There are ways to do things that mean you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And if we look at the colors of the color wheel, or colors that, I've got a selection of paint colors here. In general, when we talk about paint colors, yellow is considered the lightest color relative to the others. So relative means this isn't about adding white, it means that this looks lighter than green. And blue looks darker than yellow. Purple is probably the far extreme, and these two happen to be the complements, which means they're on opposite side of the color wheel. So the basic plan could apply to the complements, for example, if I want to mix yellow and purple together, but it could also apply to the complements that are red and green, and those two are actually the closest to complements when it comes to being sort of equal in perceived lightness or darkness. So the basic thing that we're learning here is that you should look at any two colors that you're mixing together. Say I'm going to mix some purple and some turquoise. I might be going off track with that one, but if I was, for some reason, I would always, here's the trick, you always start with the lightest color and add the darker color to it. And that's the relativity that you have to figure out, mainly by eyeballing it and trusting your judgment. So if I wanted to mix turquoise into green, I'd look at those two, and that might be a little bit of a toss-up. Turquoise looks a little bit lighter to me, so I'd start with that and I'd add the green to it. So this is basically a rule of thumb that you can apply, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're always going to be spot on with it. Let's try it and see what I mean. So let's do these two complements. I put a little purple out on my palette, and I'll put a little yellow out on my palette. Get yourself a clean piece of plexiglass like this one. This one's white, which is really handy. You could get a clear one, but then whatever you're putting it on impacts it. White is perfect. So I've got this piece of plexiglass, and it cleans. And acrylic paint comes right off even when it gets hard, so those are all advantages. So I guess that's a best practice in and of itself. Now, if I take the yellow and I start mixing it into the purple, and by the way, I have a nice little video on mixing colors into black and colors into white. If you haven't watched that one, check it out next, because what happened just now is pretty much what happens if you try to mix a color into black. When I mix a light color into a darker color, the light color can disappear completely. So this purple has yellow in it. You saw me do it. It's not a magic trick. I didn't take it away. But when I paint it out over here, that sure doesn't have any yellow, at least it doesn't appear to have any yellow in it right now. And I can add more yellow to it. So far, this purple has about half of that yellow dab out there mixed into it. And yet you don't see that much shift. These might both be useful colors, which is a different story. Especially if I'm painting shadows, these would be beautiful colors. But you're not getting the yellow at all. Just for the sake of the discussion, let's add all of the yellow into that purple. And so we have roughly equal parts here of the purple and the yellow. The color that I'm getting is this. It could be a useful color. There's no bad color because it's all about what you would use the color for. But right now, that's just kind of a difficult olive. Wouldn't you love to name paint chips? I'd love to have a paint chip that I picked up for a wall that was called Difficult Olive. In any event, there's no yellow here, and we're going to start over. So I clean my brush, and I put out a little dab of yellow, little dab of purple. I hate to waste paint, so it's a good thing I bought these half price. And now I'm going to go at it the other direction. Yellow is lighter. If I follow my rule, I add the purple to the yellow. I won't do the whole big old glob. I'll put it over here, and I'm going to put a little purple on the brush. See how little that is? Not very much at all. And look how fast it shifted the yellow, really fast. So I'm getting a whole range of kind of unexpected colors. Who knew there would be an olive in here? And if you go back and watch the video mixing black and color together, you'll see there's another range of olive that you can get with that combination. And who knew there were so many ways to get olive, which happens to be a color I really love. When that dries, it might almost look more straw-like, but I'm quibbling. I want to see if I can get an even lighter version of that than that's how I do it. So you see yellow, it's kind of a special color because it can be shifted so very fast that you need almost no complement to get new versions of the color. So that's nice. I love that color. It's not, actually now that I'm looking at these together, that's a palette I could work with. Now, that's what happens when it's really clear that you've got a light one and a darker one. Now, let's see what happens if I mix red into green. Right here I have two little piles, red and green. They're almost equal amounts. Of course, I didn't measure it, but eyeballing it, they look pretty close. I'm not going to mix these two together. I'm going to just do a little experiment where I have that much red and about the same amount of green. And I'm going to mix those together for starters and see what happens. It's a good way to test. I mean, you have to audition some of these things because you don't know for sure what will happen. But obviously, the red is stronger than the green because you don't see any green in it at all. Now, just for the sake of the discussion, let's rinse off the brush and put the green over there and just mix a little dab of red into it. See, that amount of green shifted the red pretty fast. And who would know that you've got that color hidden between two kind of, I don't know. I'm jaded on holiday colors. I don't really care for them. So I would never use them in this version, but I'd use these two together. And this must just be my olive day, because there you go. I'm getting another olive with the red and the green. So if what you like is dirty khaki olive green colors, man, you're in business. This is the way to do it. I'm going to clean my brush out again. And this time I'm going to add a little more red. I'm going to see how far I can push. Ooh, now I've overdone it. So see, that's back to being much more red. Add a little more green. Now I'm getting, isn't that interesting, kind of a chocolatey brown. Look at that one over here with a red tone to it. Mocha. So, just enough, I hope, to get you interested in mixing colors into each other in order to see what happens, because you can think about it all you want, but one of the things about making art is that you can keep it in your head or you can put it out in reality with a paintbrush or with a silk screen, in this case with a brush and some tube paints, and then you really know what happens. And when you really know what happens, then you're in control. Now, if I had a paint chip, which I do in some of my classes, I pull out a paint chip and I say, here, go mix this color. If somebody's done all this work in advance and they know what happens when you mix red and green together or yellow and purple together, they're in much better shape to start figuring out what the secret formula was that mixed that paint chip color. So the next time you go into a big box store and you're looking at the paint supplies and you go over and you're checking out the chips and you pick up that chip that's that beautiful olive and you'd love to paint it, you'd love to paint your living room that color, and it's called, what did I call this one? I don't even remember now. And it's called Dirty Stinkin' Olive, you'll be able to figure out how to mix it, and that'll feel really great. And the whole point is that once you get some of these skills mastered, your creativity can flourish, and that's what we all love best. If you're enjoying my videos, and if you liked this one, if you'd like to see it again, you can like it. If you've got questions about anything I'm doing that doesn't make sense to you, or just about any other question, I suppose, you can write it down there. I check them frequently, and I'll answer your questions myself. And if you would like to know when we release videos, and we do, in 2019, our goal is one per week on Fridays. If you'd like to be at the front of the line checking those out, then subscribe, because we love to know you're out there. It makes what we do worthwhile.